is still kind of confused. I'm in the wrong place, so now I've got to shift and get back to where my landing zone is and start my movement, my assault. And Colonel Elliot P. Sidnor, Bud Sidnor, good man, God rest his soul, grabbed me by my gear, and he's shaking me, and he's saying in a very cool, calm voice, Dan, playing green, Dan. Now imagine, if you will, there's a lot of chaos. People are shooting, a lot of yelling, a lot of things happening. Aircraft are leaving. 8-1 Sky Raiders are strafing the bridge on the north end of the compound. A lot of things going on, and this man is as cool as an ice cube. Dan, playing green, Dan. So we shifted our troops into a plan green, which was a plan, if Greenleaf is not there, then Redwine would do certain things. In this case, we had all the targets of opportunity outside the POW compound. Our base duty, our initial mission was everything east and south. And Greenleaf had everything east and north. And Blue Boy was inside.
2A1 supported Greenleaf with an airstrike on a wooden footbridge east of the barracks. Apple 1 returned at 0223, and by 0228, the support group had disengaged under fire and reboarded the helicopter with a short flight to the correct landing area. After a thorough search of the compound that included a second sweep, Blue Boy's 3 teams discovered that the prison held no POWs. The Raiders transmitted the code phrase, negative items, to the command group.
I started pulling my men back out of that area, and they started moving in. And then Colonel Sidnor calls me again and says, no items, which was our code word for no POWs. And I was flabbergasted. I was stunned. What do you mean? We're here. Everything's going as planned. No POWs. So I couldn't do anything with that message, so I put it back here in the back of my head right alongside the jump commands and went on trying to stay alive. Then he called me again and he said, Dan, I'm changing the extraction plan. 2 things wrong with that statement. First off, you don't use names on the radio unless something's very important. And so when the boss uses your first name on the radio, you know the next transmission is not going to be very good. I'm changing the extraction plan. In the middle of all this chaos, he's going to give me a new withdrawal order. He did, and so now I know I'm taking all of Redwine out except for 3 people. I'm taking all of Blue Boy out except the 3-man headquarters on the 1st aircraft as opposed to the 2nd and 3rd aircraft.
On orders to withdraw, the HH-53s returned one at a time to the extraction landing zone through a heavy surface-to-air missile barrage, flying well below the minimum effective level of the missiles. Apple 1 landed first at 0237 and lifted off with its passengers, followed moments later by Apple 2. Apple 3, the last aircraft out, was cleared to leave its holding area at 0248. The raid had been executed in only 27 minutes, well within the planned 30-minute optimum time. Although at first it was feared one raider had been left behind, all the troopers were finally accounted for. One Redwine trooper had been wounded in the leg, but he was the only casualty from hostile fire on the raid. The assault formation was out of North Vietnam by 0315 and landed back at UDORM at 0428, 5 hours after launch. For the hundreds of planners and raiders, the empty Son-Tay POW compound was a disappointment. However, it was a profound shock to the North Vietnamese that the Americans were willing and able to go anywhere to free their captive warriors. All prisoners were rounded up by the communists from satellite camps and consolidated at the infamous Hanoi Hilton in the capital for safekeeping. Conditions and rations improved. The beating subsided. Now, with all the prisoners knowing who had survived, it became more difficult to just slaughter the captives, no matter how the war might end. Most importantly, confined prisoners learned the facts of the raid, and this gave them renewed hope for future freedom. In a way, The Sante raid contributed to the survival of more prisoners until their eventual release than those helicopters would have carried away from that single camp. The raid also proved that a complicated joint or multi-service operation was possible, utilizing the brightest and best operators and cutting-edge technology. The Special Forces had been used in Vietnam and around the world, mostly to train native troops as a force multiplier with occasional raids. The Sante raid was the first major direct action mission of the Special Forces and paved the way for the Delta Teams and the United States Special Operations Command that deploys around the world at short notice to this day.